Hey, how's it going? In today's video, I wanted to give you a little bit of a tour of Al Masra, the new Warzone 2 map. So some creators are going to be playing this tomorrow on Wednesday. They're going to get to play a bit of Warzone and DMZ on this. But I thought we could take a little bit of a more gentle look around the entire map, just using the Codcaster mode in private games in Modern Warfare 2. So you can do this just loading up a custom game on any of the maps that feature in Al Masra and just take a look around. Lots of the areas won't load in properly, like all the geometry won't load in, but you can actually see quite a lot of the map and you can see the distances between things and some of the general areas. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So rather than starting an embassy like I did in the previous video, today we're going to start at Zarkwa Hydroelectric. That's the multiplayer map that a lot of you will know, and this is an area in the Warzone 2 map, which will be super interesting because obviously it's a very sort of detailed, dense little map, a detailed little area. And you can see in the real map, it actually backs out onto this big river where you've got some of the water flowing down, and then you can go over these bridges. There's one on this side and one on that side into more residential areas. So you can see here there's a town and there's lots of little buildings, lots of rooftops that you can stand on. One of those towers that we used to see a lot of in Warzone, and a petrol station. There's a water tower like you see on one of the ground war maps to snipe from. Lots and lots of kind of interesting detailed areas. And this area makes me think that Warzone 2 is going to play quite differently from Warzone. Remember in Verdansk you had a downtown area where you had loads of buildings that people could hide away in. On this map, it seems like you've got loads of towns like that. So like I said, this is on one side of Zarkwa Hydroelectric, and then if we just cross over, obviously you've got the map in the middle with lots of buildings, and then you've got this side of it where it's got a very different visual style with lots of these kind of terracotta buildings. But again, there's loads of buildings here. Like, this is very detailed. Now, if we shoot on over here, you can see the river that's moving quite fast. And bear in mind now you can swim in Warzone, you've got boats and stuff. That's going to be a much more interesting feature rather than those kind of dried up waterways that we saw before in Verdansk. But then if you head on over here, you've got some of these buildings. It looks like they'd have quite a good view if you wanted to snipe from up there. And then we can head on into the city. So this is a bit like downtown in Verdansk, where you've actually got the built up area of the map. Obviously lots of the geometry isn't loading in properly here, so we can't see details in any of these buildings, but you can kind of get a sense of like, there's a petrol station, you've got some bigger sort of silo type buildings here, you've got this massive arch, almost looks like the sort of St. Louis arch or something like that, and then you've got this kind of interesting bit here that I'm not sure if this is actually what it'll look like, but it's like a highway that stops there, and then on the other side there's no highway at all. It looks like a construction site. So it seems a bit like, if any of you have watched that old movie Speed with Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock in, are we going to be able to like drive off here and then try to ramp over that little bit of that's unfinished and land on these dirt tracks to get away? Like, that could be super exciting. Like, I think that could be very cool. Then also in this building we obviously have Highrise. So that is the multiplayer map that's back in here, and it is right in the middle of these two buildings. So you've got this really big building. Like, I'm not sure if that's going to have a detailed interior, but it looks like it might do, because there's kind of an entranceway there and some gardens and stuff, lots of floors. And then this is obviously Highrise. You can kind of get a sense of what that looks like if you remember that from multiplayer. You've also got the train station here. So the train station is quite a cool building in itself, very like modern looking. And you've got the train rails there. There are trains on the map. We saw that in COD Next. Not many of the players like interacted with it, I don't think, but there was definitely a train going round. You've got this kind of nice little touristy looking area with lots of canals and little bridges. I thought that's very cool. Another big building here, maybe like a TV building like we had before. I'm just thinking that because it's got like the aerials and stuff like that on the roof. I've got no idea, obviously. And like I said, this looks so expansive. There's so many large areas with tons and tons of buildings in them. Now, that's not to say there aren't open areas. There still are quite a few open areas. You've got all of this kind of hillside, this road that goes around the edge of the map. This all looks pretty sparse. There's some rocks and stuff like that, but it's nothing like Caldera, where in Caldera, obviously, all of the points of interest were kind of dotted around the coast. And then you had Peak being the sort of massive structure in the middle, and around that lots and lots of empty ground. It seems like we've got lots more interesting areas. Now this is another interesting one. This looks like it could be something like, you know, solar panels, like a solar farm or something like that maybe. And this looks like a fire station, I think. So you've got the big entrance here where you normally have, you know, the fire trucks waiting, and a tower up there. So it looks like we're going to go back to having those fire stations with the towers on top. That's going to be another location. Also, one of these like tool buildings, these tool watchtowers. There's a few of these on ground war maps that have the little walkway all the way around the edge. It looks a little bit like you'll be super exposed on that walkway trying to get up there, but then if you do manage to get up, you've got quite a good view of anyone trying to cross from any of those different sides. Now we'll keep it moving because obviously there's a million different things to see here. There are lots of these little structures along the river where I'm guessing they're little boat houses and things like that. It'll be interesting to see if the boats have fuel and you need to refuel them at these, or maybe this will be where the boats spawn and stuff like that. Now you've got this much more open area here, which looks a little bit like scrapyard or something like that. And I'm sure I'll be missing some things here where someone will say, oh, that's obviously this Modern Warfare 2 map or something. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing some of those, if there are some of those areas. This looks almost like, I don't know, it looks like it's going to have a gate around it and there's some barbed wire. Maybe this is some kind of prison, or is this, actually, is this maybe... This is that multiplayer map that I hate, isn't it? Is it called Talak or something like that? I just realised when I saw that greenish building that this is that bloody map. That's where this is. So quite a long way away from the towns and something like that. And then obviously this is also part of the bigger ground war map where you have these structures dotted around the edge as well. And then you've got some of the oil fields and things like that over here. Now, as you go further away from whichever multiplayer map you start with, you start like losing detail. Now you can see here, this I think is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if this is actually going to be in the map that you can play, but there's some really interesting kind of areas dotted around the edge. So you've got this little runway. This isn't the main airport. There's a much bigger airport, but you've got this tiny little runway that kind of reminds me of the one in GTA 5, the sort of northern airport. And then if you go over here, you've got this lovely little oasis with a load of ruins, a load of kind of ancient looking structures around here. So I'm not sure if this is going to be actually inbounds on the Warzone map. It's kind of hard to tell where the edge will be. But there's some cool little ruins all the way around the edge there. And then between there and getting back to civilization, you've got plenty of open space, like actual desert, that would be kind of a horrible place to get stuck in. You know, if you've got somebody sitting up here and sniping, they're going to have a fairly easy time picking you out over there. Now over here, you've got the massive oil refinery. So a huge industrial complex, way bigger than something like factory that we saw in Caldera. This looks like, you know, it's got a depot here. It's got train lines going through the middle of it. Loads of those kind of big silo buildings where often there's loot on top, but it's kind of deft to get up there. Interesting little ramp thing that goes all the way around this gas storage thing, I guess that would be. Then if you go back out over the dunes a little bit, you've got this kind of little truck stop type area with a petrol station and a few little buildings here. That looks more like the sort of thing that we're used to seeing in Verdansk, I guess. And then you've got this small little town over here where we can barely see any details at all. But if you head on up to the hills, you get to see Quarry up here. So here you can see the blocks all being moved, and you can kind of get a decent sense of this area being an actual multiplayer map area. You can see there just how detailed it is. And it definitely seems like this map is a little bit more like that than Verdansk or Caldera was, in terms of you've got very distinctive multiplayer maps hidden away on different parts of this map. Then you start to get over to the coast. I'm guessing this is kind of the edge of the map. And then we can go around and start to see more kind of wasteland type areas, more industrial quarry type areas over here. Another one of those petrol stations. Remember they said at COD Next that the different cars would actually need to be refueled. So these petrol stations will be quite important if you like playing with vehicles. Unless you take the electric Humvee, I think it is. That one is one that you don't need to refuel, but all of the others are going to have to be refueled at some point. Kind of to stop people just hiding out in the trucks, I guess. Now, if you go down here, we've got some big dockland areas. And the scale of everything just seems absolutely massive. Like all of these different areas seem huge to me. And you can see there's another little sort of I think this is like a refueling bit for boats. And you've got this massive tanker out here, or cargo ship, I should say. So this huge cargo ship out here, which looks like it's got lots of playable space on there. You can see it's like set up. Again, it seems to be set up in a kind of symmetrical way, like not perfectly symmetrical, but almost like a gunfight map. Like I could imagine this being a bit like a gunfight map. It actually looks almost a little bit like Shipment or something, but on a ship. But yeah, so that seems like if we get gunfight in the game at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that as a gunfight map. Again, people will be like, that's the multiplayer map from such and such. If it is, please correct me. So you've got lots and lots of containers dotted around here. I wouldn't be surprised if there were more old multiplayer maps hidden away in all of these. And then you've got these massive warehouses, like this warehouse in particular is absolutely huge. It's colossal. Now you can't go inside them. If you go inside, there's like not much detail. There's actually more detail than I thought there would be in that one, but there's not much detail. They look pretty ugly from the inside at the moment. Then you can go around here and you can start to see the beginnings of the ground war map. Sarif Bay is kind of up here. You've got lots of these coastal towns, just loads and loads of towns wherever we go. This is that map. What is it called? Said, I think, the ground war map. So, you know, it's got all of the big long corridors down there, and then you've got the big shopping center at the end, which this is actually one of the spawns on the Said map. Again, you can't really see inside here, but if you go on ground war, you can actually see inside that pretty well. And then that's kind of, again, that's part of the ground war map, and it looks over to the equivalent side there. Then we can head on over. There's more kind of hotel buildings, massive highways dotted about. This is a kind of interesting structure here where you've got the road seems to be flooded. Bear in mind the water level might not be accurate. Like that might be something that's not there. Now I think this might be where there's some kind of castle or something like that there that's not loaded in. I feel like when you're in one of the other maps, maybe you see something load in there, but I'm not 100% sure. Then you've got this sort of parkland type area looking over here. You've got some wrecked ships over here. Like this whole area is flooded, which looks kind of cool. And you've got this massive wrecked ship up there, which is a similar kind of ship to the other one, but it doesn't have any of the cargo on board. Like they've lost all of that. And yeah, you've got this flooded town. You've got more shipwrecks off the coast. They did actually say in one of the blog posts, they mentioned like, oh, I wonder what's in the shipwrecks. So I wonder if that might be a place to check for Easter eggs and stuff like that maybe at some point. Then you've got a load of this hillside, and bear in mind, like right at this point, we're really, really far away from the map that we started from Zarkwa Hydroelectric. So a lot of this stuff might actually have buildings and structures on it that we just can't see yet. This looks like some sort of massive graveyard, although it's got a massive digger in it as well, so maybe it's not, maybe it's just a construction site. But it looks to me like a big old graveyard. These all look like graves. And everything is just a bigger size. Like, you know, there's a graveyard in Fortune's Keep, but it's nothing like that. It's nowhere near as big as that. I don't think even the Verdansk one was as big as that. Then you can keep on going around the coast and see some of the other structures, some of the other buildings. Lots of smaller buildings around here. Then we start getting to some of the slightly bigger buildings. And this is Sarif Bay, which is another one of the ground war maps. So you can see the lighthouse over there where B is. Then you've got the kind of fire station building. And this kind of bay area, that's where C is over there. But since we're in spectator mode and we can look all the way around, we can actually go out of the bounds of that and go see what's over on this island, which you can't get to in a ground war map. And here you've got this kind of big industrial looking area. But if you head on up here, you can start to see Fortress, which is one of the other multiplayer maps. So this is another one of the multiplayer maps that's featuring on the Warzone thing. And you can kind of see the layout of it here. Like this is where one of the teams spawns, at least when you're playing kill confirm, stuff like that. This is where those two trucks are. And then there's the first hardpoint objective is just there. And then you go through the archers and this is where the other team spawns. This is where that like fountain area is. Hopefully you can get a sense of it. This is obviously on a massive hill, kind of overlooking the rest of that bay area. And then you can go over here to the main airport. So this is the larger airport. I thought there's meant to be terminal here, but when I looked here before, I couldn't actually see the area of it that I thought was meant to be terminal. You've got the ATC tower, which again looks huge. Like everything on this map, it looks absolutely massive. The runway again has a massive hole in it. We're not expecting to see any planes in this game, like not like we had in Vanguard. I haven't heard of anything like that happening. Now this is the area that I thought terminal would be here. This kind of looks like, you know, the building bit that juts out and then you've got the escalators there. So that looks a lot like terminal, but the actual plane is missing, which is kind of the key point of it. So maybe this is terminal. This definitely looks like that part of the multiplayer map, you know, where you've got the escalators and then you go up through here into the concourse. Definitely think this looks like it, but without the plane there, it just looks like it's really missing something. But maybe that's just because the plane model isn't in the game yet or doesn't get rendered at this distance. Who knows? So then looking around on this side of it, there's not much else to see, I don't think. There's more towns. Like I said, there's a million different towns on this place. Are we going to have to be learning all of the different names so people know what we're talking about, so we've got a decent sense of where you're heading to? We've also got this massive bridge, which, you know, if you're into engineering like me, I like kind of boring stuff like that. This is a cool looking bridge, I think. This could be cool. It's absolutely massive. You've got this highway that goes all the way around. It's going to be interesting if the vehicles are really, really fast. I've never really tried to get any of the vehicles up to speed, but it'll be interesting to see whether there's something like how quickly you can do laps of the entire map. Then you've got this much, much, much smaller, again, kind of industrial town, kind of like a lorry depot, much smaller buildings, but still a lot of them are 2 stories. Now, if we head into the center of the map, because you can see there we're going back over towards where Highrise is, and Zarkwa's down there somewhere, I think, down that river. If we go into the center of the map where we haven't really looked around yet, we can just see the last couple of locations. So all the way around this mountain, there's lots of sort of smaller settlements. A little bit worried that we've got mountains in the middle. Again, like Caldera, lots of people complained about that before. But, you know, we'll see how it plays. We'll see how it goes. And if you climb up onto the top of this mountain, you've got this quite large building there. Again, if you want to go for long distance snipes, the roof of this building is going to be pretty amazing. Like, can you imagine someone getting snipes on people in Highrise or something like that from up there? But then if you head up here, you've got this really sort of green kind of lake, so very different looking water. And then some buildings right at the very top of the map up here. And up here, they've got spectacular views of the airport. So again, some crazy snipes, I'm sure. But even more interesting to me is if we head over to the other mountain peaks. There's kind of 2 mountain peaks. The other one has observatory on it. Now, this is an area that you get to play on a little bit in Spec Ops. In the 3rd Spec Ops map, you can play the area that's kind of like dome up here. But you can see all different kind of cool buildings, the massive telescopes up here. There's some like bunkery type buildings, some underground bits, what looks like maybe an unfinished telescope or something like that, or maybe it's been destroyed in some way. Lots of cool buildings up here. And then I'm assuming that you'll be able to, like, you know, jump off and wingsuit down to basically anywhere in the map from up here, because this has quite a commanding view of the rest of the map. So that's been my little tour of all of Al Masra, like all the different locations that I found while I'm looking in this area. Obviously, like I said, we're going to get much better looks at this very soon. Warzone 2 launches on November 16th, so then you'll get to play it yourself and get to explore all of these different areas, and I cannot wait. Of course, I'm going to be streaming absolutely tons of Warzone 2, going to be checking out DMZ, going to be checking out raids whenever they go live, so make sure you subscribe, turn your notifications on, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.